How do you carry $100 billion in laundered money to the bank? Ukraine it! I had no idea that my chosen profession figured that prominently in the global conspiracy, which of course begs the next question when I assign the riggers: do they choke it or use a basket? I know, it's probably wrong for me to treat such a serious topic with such facetiousness, but look, man, if you can't laugh at yourself, especially in this day and age, the propaganda ministry is working overtime, and we know that they are having great success, but with a smaller and smaller and, tragically, in line with the cosmos, more dense and more intense and more heated group of faithful. The smaller it gets, the denser it gets, the more intense it gets. But by God, they are having some success. And they're not even having to try anymore. I mean, really, they've gotten down to such basics as, 7-year-old pee-pee jokes. This appeared, actually, in the New York Post. Russia is giving soldiers Viagra to rape Ukrainians. That's the New York Post. You can run hot and cold on the Post and the things that they decide to publish, and they certainly got screwed during the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing when Twitter banned them from the platform. But come on, man. Russia is giving soldiers Viagra to rape Ukrainians. How is this any different than some of the diabolical stuff that we had to say about the Germans and the Japanese during World War II? This is the way propaganda works, people. I mean, we can't expect otherwise, but you do have to treat it sort of with a sense of humor. They're getting desperate though with my boy Elon. That's right. Now we remember Elon Musk at the onset of the unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine. He said, you know what? I will give these guys Starlink. I will give these guys Starlink stations so they will be able to communicate. They are a poor, deprived country, yada, yada, yada. And was nice enough to do that out of his own pocket and the kindness of his own fucking heart. They asked him to go one step further and give them the ability to censor information, and because Elon is a principled man, he refused to go that extra length. Well, immediately they started biting the hand that feeds, and this week, well, our favorite coked up clown shoe, our favorite entertainer in charge of the propaganda effort, well, he and his advisors basically told Elon that Elon could go fuck himself. Right. So Elon says, I'm taking your advice, and decides that he's going to cut off service to Ukraine. The outcry was immediate and pronounced, and of course came from as high as the U.S. intelligence echelon. Somebody needs to remind them that defense contractors, like Lockheed, Boeing, the billions and billions that we keep sending to this asshole, they make billions of dollars off of that deal, and Elon has been doing this for free, but somehow Elon's the bad guy because, by default, if he's not with this guy, then he has to be working with, well, this guy. Again, they're not even trying. Everybody that they don't like is a Russian operative, including, yes, this little lovely, my Tulsi. Now, look, guys, I am neither stupid, nor am I uninformed, nor am I naive. There are plenty of things with which I am apprehensive about Miss Tulsi, but she took a bold step this week. She single-handedly undermined Kamala, and we'll get into that in a bit, but she took a bold step this week in stepping away from the Democratic Party, and what did they do? They doubled down on her being a Russian asset. Lest you think I am being hyperbolic, let me remind you that back in 2020, this harpy hag outright said that Tulsi Gabbard was a Russian asset because she had the audacity to differ from the Democratic orthodoxy. And of course, NBC, parent company of MSNBC, well, they jumped right in on the propaganda effort. Russia's propaganda machine discovers 2020 Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard. Oh man, the propaganda machine at work. They just can't seem to get their story straight, and there's only so much cover they can run. It wasn't that long ago that our cadaver in chief was fist bumping with the Saudi premier. Little quid pro quo got cut on the back end, but this week they decided to go back on that, leaving Joe, well, a little disappointed. He was really, really, really hoping to buy those votes with lower gas prices right before the midterms, and buddy, it didn't work out for him. Came catastrophically crashing down around him, and I, for one, couldn't be happier. But here's the strength of the propaganda machine. Now with the alleged fact checkers. This was posted to my fan page. Now, the statement here couldn't be any clearer than it is. China emits more CO2 than the entire Western Hemisphere. And this is absolutely and irrefutably true. According to the measurements, according to the years in question, China, that one nation, emitted more CO2 than the entire Western Hemisphere. Funny, the Greta cult and all the rest of the Green Movement only seem to want to restrict Western powers from, any sort of standard when it comes to we've got to clamp down on our economy to prevent carbon emissions. Meanwhile, China continues unabated to build more coal-fired power plants. Well, maybe it's because of the power of, well, you guessed it, boys and girls, the propaganda ministry. Because when I posted this, a fact checker immediately jumped on. Now, here was the fact check. Not that what I had stated was incorrect. No, sirree, Bob. They couldn't refute that statistic. They said, and I quote, important context is lacking. What is that context, you may ask yourself? I certainly did. Well, the context was that, yes, China does emit more CO2, more harmful greenhouse gas CO2 than the entire Western Hemisphere, but per capita, they're actually lower than Trinidad and Tobago. Neat. I didn't say anything about per capita, nor did the meme, nor did the post. But they're going to throw that in anyway. Do me a favor, fact check mob. Next time you're going to bring a straw man, give me a little advance notice so I can put out my cigarette. Yeah, the fact checkers are on us, and it doesn't really matter because we are going to have to find the guts, the spine, and the balls ourselves. You knew we weren't getting out of here without an Orwell quote. In a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. The comic irony of the whole thing is that the people at the center of power in the regime right now call themselves the resistance. They are anything but. They are tools of the machine, if not the machine itself. But as long as we are speaking the truth, we are revolutionaries. And that is a title that I will gladly own. If telling the truth makes me a radical, radical it shall be. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough, certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart, they are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to choke you with a big fat dose of swollen, erect, throbbing, dripping, turgid, thorny truth cock. Open wide, boys and girls. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. That truth cock gets bigger every time I tell the story, man. Got nothing to do with anything. Just a little random thing that's taking hold. Everybody in for the drum roll. Another weird week, man. Another weird week. We are on board. We are rolling. The bumper music as always. My boys, Red Desert. The smoldering embers of the once great city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's right, boys and girls. Name of the band is Red Desert. Name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older every week. You guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. We're going to go through the roll call, see which one of the usual suspects are on board early and ready to rock this thing. We got a lot of good stuff to discuss. Didn't want to give it all away in the opener, man, but we got our bullet points and it all ties in. Try to keep some uniformity to it, but we're going to drift, people. There's no format here. It's just us sitting around a coffee table, ranting, raving, and drinking caffeine. Or your beverage of choice. I prefer the stimulants. We'll roll with that. We've got Carrie and Roman from opiumtales.com on board early. Hondo Wade, hello, hello. Gladly take the silver. Yeah, I think I'd probably take silver over bronze right now too, but that's more a precious metals equation than what you guys were actually talking about. Original sister Emmy on board early. See who else we got. Rolling down. Brother Dennis just back from the super vacation. Little rock hound out there rock hounding. And I got to tell you, man, I've been on a couple of journeys with Mr. Dennis when it comes to rock hounding. That guy is, they're minerals. They're minerals, God damn it. Oh, I'm sorry. I tried to belittle it, man. Just a little Breaking Bad moment. Brother Ryan Jenkins, hello, hello. Good to have you on board, brother. Keeping it safe out there. Of course, Mr. Wright on board. Hello, hello. Good to see you, brother. What else we got? Who else we got? Yep. All of the usual suspects seem to have showed up early. I believe Joel's on board as well. More people are going to be trickling in. I really don't know how much reach I've got on the Facebook platform anymore. They've throttled me. They've throttled me pretty fucking heavy. But, you know, this happened before, right before the midterms. Or, well, actually right before, not the midterms, but the 2020 election. This exact same thing happened. The scenario is always the same. Take a bullshit premise and use it to throttle the reach of any conservative commentator. Now, at the time, I was getting, we had Aaron reposting the sermon to a lot of groups, and I was getting literally several thousand views a week there for a while. So at that point, I had some reach. I could understand them wanting to throttle it. But for the love of fuck, man, you know, I'm nobody now, you know, couple hundred views a week, and that's across all of the formats that I'm on, and fuck, man, they're still throttling me. I guess they just can't take a chance, or maybe once your name's on that list, it never goes away. Really not sure. Oh, good. Hey, Mike, good to have you on board, man. Good to have you on board. And yeah, that hip recovery went super quick, man. Super quick. Those of you guys that know, man, Mike is the guy that did that awesome plaque with the Prime Directives and Viking runes. One of the coolest gifts I've ever been given. He recently had a hip replacement surgery. In fact, he had his before I had mine. Going in the same way and dealing with recovery and everything, and listening to his advice as I was proceeding through the recovery was exceedingly helpful. Because, you know, if you guys have ever had like any major surgery, like joint replacement surgeries, things like that, it takes you out of your game, man. You know, it's not like a heart surgery thing. I mean, like a real heart surgery thing, not like pretty motherfuckers that are having their pericardium cut open and acting like it's open heart surgery. Was that directed? Oh, you bet your ass it was. He knows who he is, and fuck that piece of shit. Anyway, a little bitter, maybe. Not worried about it, man. This is the only outlet I have for that kind of bitterness, because that little pretty motherfucker ain't never gonna step up. Bitch ain't gonna bust a grape, to coin a phrase. In any case, when you're having surgery, even though it's not technically life-threatening, you know, like if you're having parts of your cranium removed and that kind of stuff, it's still major joint surgery, man, and it takes you out of your element, because all of a sudden your body is just, I mean, it wasn't functioning great before. It was functioning with a lot of pain, but at least it was functioning, you know what I mean, like on any kind of level. And it's a little nerve-wracking early on in the recovery process, man. I mean, you're kind of like, you can get your head around the concept that, hey, man, you know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks from now, it's not going to be this bad, and I'll actually, you know, be able to walk around again without a walker or a cane and stuff like that. But when you're in the moment, you're like, oh my God, I've lost all function. I'm going to be crippled like this for the rest of my fucking life. You know, because that's just what your brain does. But Mike being around and giving me word of how well his recovery was going and what to expect, and you know, drawing the distinctions between how his recovery differed from mine, in certain aspects. Like, I mean, I never wore compression socks, just never did. Never got around to it. I probably should have, at some point, but I didn't develop any kind of circulatory difficulties or anything like that. But, he kept it in perspective for me, and Mike, I really appreciate that. Just little words here and there. Hey, man, about 3 weeks in, you're going to be here. You can expect some of this and some of that. Maybe this will happen to you. Maybe it won't. Kind of stuff. But just to have somebody going through it in a similar time frame was very reassuring. That and the fact that gift, man, that fucking plaque it just remains one of the coolest gifts I've ever been given, man. And I've just got nothing but respect for you, man. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right. So where are we at? Okay, let's get the sponsor shout outs out of the way. And yeah, let's get the sponsor shout outs out of the way, and we'll go ahead and knock that out. First and foremost, Brother Roman and his lovely wife Carrie, and Roxy and Allie and Bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. You have beautiful naked women done in beautiful watercolor with heavy testosterone driven commentary. There's a lot to fucking like about that. And Roman, besides that, is one of my oldest and dearest friends. We go all the way back to 1988. Yeah, it's like a year that a lot of you guys weren't even fucking born, and we were already kicking it together back in the day. So, Roman, great to have you on board, both as a friend, long-term friend, and a flagship sponsor of the program. Also, my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison, from Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue here in the inland Northwest. And I'm in the process of making arrangements right now of breaking my meatless fast with some Nordic Smoke Barbecue. You guys know, we went over the tradition and everything. I don't eat any animal flesh at all until the 31st. I get up, I have my seasonal ritual, my meditation, my communion with the old gods, and then I go out and gorge myself on animal flesh. And I'm in the process of making arrangements right now to make sure that animal flesh this year is none other than Nordic Smoke Barbecue. So, Casey and Dusty Tellison, fine product, fine people, good friends. Get out there and take care of the businesses that are taking care of this program. Get out there and take care of the independent businesses that are getting after it and having to fight all of Inslee's lockdowns and all of the various bullshit that we've all had to go through here on the left coast with the COVID pandemic. Keep in mind, man, we are living in a red region of a blue state. Here east of the Cascades. East of the Cascades is the same in Washington and in Oregon. You get east of the Cascades, it's essentially red state. You have a lot of self-reliant, hardworking, blue-collar, conservative-leaning people. The leftist lunatics that give this place a reputation are all in Seattle and Portland, respectively. And even though we don't share their ideology, we are forced to live under the dictates of that regime and Inslee and his boys over there in Olympia. So you had people on this side of the state that were just like, dude, look, man, we're over it. Fuck you. Fuck your, fuck your vax mandate, your mask mandates, every other thing. Fuck your lockdowns and stuff like that. We wanted no part of it, but because they have the numbers over there, we were forced to live through it. So when I say get out and support those businesses, I mean it. Because those were the businesses that were shut down. Those were the businesses that were formally shut down as non-essential, as if it were any safer for you to be in a Walmart or a Target or a Costco or a Kroger or a Fred Meyer or any of those places. As if it were safer for you to be in a marijuana dispensary or a titty bar than it would have been in your own church. This is how it came down. And I'm not going to go off on too much of that tear because we've already rehashed it to death. But at the end of the day, never forget who these people are. Never forget who these people are. Never forget what they did. And never forget the people that are close to you that enabled, justified, and rationalized all of the things that they are doing. I don't care if they're friends. I don't care if they're family members. I have people that are blood family to me that are dumb as a fucking rock. And if you're out there and you're wondering if I'm talking about you, probably yes. They are no less family for that reason, but I will never, ever fucking trust them with regard to their shameless enabling of egregious overreach of authority. There are people whose intellect I had previously respected that I will never trust again, ever, because they showed me exactly who they are. Don't forget, people. This is one of those things. If you want to forgive, that's on you. All right, that's between you and God. But don't ever forget. Don't ever forget. And don't ever let those people fucking close to you, because they are the ones that will be sending you and the rest of your family to the gulag if they feel like there's anything in it to be gained for them. All right? I'm sure there are plenty of people in former communist bloc countries that never thought that their family would sell them out either, and they found out the hard way. It'll never happen here. It is happening here, just on a smaller scale. When you had local police departments, and I swore I wasn't going to go down this fucking road, but here we are. Spokane Police Department and Spokane County Sheriff's Department both had to put out PSAs during the height of the pandemic and the height of the lockdowns, telling people to stop calling 911 for people not wearing masks, to stop calling 911 when their neighbors weren't social distancing. Ponder that for a second. There were people's neighbors who were saying, I saw this family playing in their own backyard and they weren't 6 feet apart, and they called the emergency number for a fucking response. You don't think that's the kind of neighbor that would turn you in for anything? Would send you to the fucking gulag if the right amount of propaganda hit them that you were part of that enemy of the state, that you were a MAGA Republican, that you were a vax denier, that you were whatever it is, that they wouldn't turn you in? Don't let these people close to you and make it evident that they are not to be allowed close to you. Don't break any bread with these motherfuckers. They made their bed, let them fucking lie in it, because when it comes down, they are the ones that are going to put you in the fucking gulag. Have no fucking illusions about that. All right, that's as far as we're going down that one. We are going to jump in, and we are going to start, as we usually do, with Ryan's Rabbit Hole. That is correct, boys and girls. Ryan's Rabbit Hole, you guys know that Ryan and I have bonded over a great many things. He was the guy that opened up the door for my crane operator journey. One of the things that we bonded over is that we are both repositories of useless information. And every week, the Rabbit Hole segment is very, very popular. It's a little poke into your bread oven there. Gets outside the boundaries of what we're discussing that particular week. It's a little something that that you may not have been aware of, something that's going to expand your worldview, something that's going to introduce you to information to which you had not been previously exposed. Some weeks we go esoteric, some weeks we go historical, some weeks we go conspiratorial, but it's always a little something that's outside of most people's wheelhouse. And this week we are going straight historical. Gentleman by the name of Owen Sullivan. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, is that the professional athlete Owen Sullivan? Is that the musician Owen Sullivan? No, it is, it is the 18th century counterfeiter Owen Sullivan. Now, here's a little something that some of you guys might not be aware of, because there are many who are libertarian leaning, who are under the misguided conception. Now, while silver and gold coins are the only constitutionally defined legal tender, people are under the impression that that was how society, particularly in the British colonies, ran. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, one of the things that enabled the growth of the United States, the rapid growth from the onset, was the fact that there were so many and so many different paper currencies in circulation. This is something that very few people are aware of. The United States did not have any sort of official banknote until almost the time of Lincoln. Okay, so private companies were able to print their own money as long as it was backed by goods or cash or tinder, and because of this, people were able to engage in a more free market with regard to how they traded. There wasn't that centralized control over it. And keep in mind, a lot of the founders were adamantly against central banks. Not only were they against central banks, they were vehemently against certain ethnicities that are closely associated with central banks historically. Read some of the stuff that Ben Franklin had to say about his Hebrew brethren, and it wasn't very kind. In any case, what Owen Sullivan did, he was far from the only counterfeiter, okay, at the time, and he wasn't even the most prolific. But the way that he went about it, and Owen Sullivan, that is your search term, by the way, the way that he went about it, he realized. Initially, he tried counterfeiting the actual silver coins and things like that. He realized that there was a lot more money to be made counterfeiting paper currencies. He was incarcerated on a number of occasions for his efforts, and in fact was branded. Okay, and I'm gonna let you discover what brand he was branded with and why on your own. That's gonna be your homework assignment. Um, but paper money didn't infringe on the government's monopoly on coinage, okay, and that's why they stepped outside with it. That's why they started counter. That's why they started. That's why they started printing all this counterfeit money. Now that's why they started printing all this paper money. Um, we can have the debate about fiat currencies and money that isn't backed by anything that is propped up by a central government. We can have that debate another time. This is about Owen. And Owen was very prolific at counterfeiting that paper money. And he used some very innovative techniques at the time that I think you were going to find quite fascinating. But again, he was caught several times, incarcerated several times, was branded for his crimes, and eventually was hanged. There is an entire book that has been written, and let me find the name of that book for you. The book is called Money Makers. It is by a fellow named Ben Tarnoff. You may or may not, depending on how fascinated you are with economic principles and fiat currencies and the history of counterfeiting, that may be you may be willing to go that deep and buy that book. You can find it in hardback for about $5 used on Amazon. Another little poke in your bread oven while I'm here. I recommend anytime that you are buying books for yourself, and particularly anytime that any of you happen to take a look at my Amazon wish list and say, hey man, I'd really like to buy this for Bart, when poke birthdays, Christmas, random Tuesdays, what the fuck ever, buy used. Always buy used, okay? Because you will be able to find hardbacks like this that are easily $25, $30 books. You will be able to find them used generally between $4 and $6, and that includes shipping. If you're just going to read the fucking book, do you really need to buy it new? But anyway, the name of this book is Money Makers. It is by Ben Tarnoff. Now, it goes into two other counterfeiting plots, including one that you may also find fascinating, depending on how far you want to follow Owen Sullivan's rabbit hole. But another counterfeiter who was not a contemporary of Sullivan, but someone who came later, was actually involved in a plot to steal Lincoln's body and hold it hostage in exchange for fucking ransom. They're interesting characters, regardless of how you feel about what they did, regardless of how you feel about economics and fiat currencies and all of these things. It's a fascinating little bit of science and a fascinating little bit of history to see how the economics of the nation evolved and how enterprising young felons like Owen Sullivan were able to take advantage of this system. And I think it will kind of rattle you a little bit that some of the misconceptions that some of you may have, that paper money was universally rejected and it was only gold and silver coins. You should probably do a bit more reading. Anyway, Owen Sullivan, that is your search term. I'm going to leave you to it to follow that rabbit hole as far as you wish to go. But I definitely think you are going to find it fascinating, and I hope against hope that that you guys are going to get something out of that rabbit hole. So, Owen Sullivan and the history of early colonial American counterfeiting. That is your rabbit hole for the week. Enjoy. Now, let us jump into the stuff that we have going on for this week. I covered a lot of it in the opener. Before we get into any of it, I just want to revisit the one, and that, because it ties into everything else. Fact-checking. 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 I have despised these smug little ideologically driven maggots since the days of Snopes, and I always caught shit from the, and you guys remember Snopes. I mean, Snopes has sort of fallen to the wayside now that we've got Politifarce and some of the other quote unquote fact checkers that are much more prominent. But in the early days, as the internet was growing, Snopes was the big fact checker. Well, at the end of the day, Snopes was just like the modern day fact checkers. They were controlled pretty much by hard leftists, and they always managed to fold context to fit their narrative. They would label something false, and then you go and you read the actual write up, and 100% of the relevant factual elements of the story are 100% true, and they don't even try to refute it. But then they would throw out a straw man or pick one specific detail that was taken out of context, and they would label it false. And it was a thing for people who are intellectually weak and ideologically and intellectually lazy, that if they didn't want to go and do their own homework on something, if you presented something, they would go to Snopes, and if Snopes disputed you, they would just go, yeah, and it was called getting Snopesed. As much as I hated those fucks, I would gladly take them over PolitiFact and some of these other people. This was something, and I wasn't kidding in the opener. I literally posted this meme. And you guys feel free right now, if you want to go in and fact check that China emits more CO2 than the entire Western Hemisphere. This is absolutely and irrefutably true. That one family member that I mentioned, who was dumb as a rock, who I've gotten into a number of heated discussions with, them trying to justify it. Well, just because China is doing their thing doesn't mean we shouldn't try to improve our... Well, we are, but again, it's that leftist ideology. Critical thought goes right out the fucking window. We are letting China... We're not lifting a finger while China continues to build coal-fired power plants. We are not lifting a finger while they exploit their oil resources and their gas resources and all their fucking fossil fuels and continue to dump more CO2 into the atmosphere than the entire Western Hemisphere. I posted that. Posted it to my fan page, and they are really, really hard on my fan page right now. I promise you, I won't promise you. I don't feel in my heart of hearts that my Facebook fan page is going to survive the year. They are literally picking everything to death. You remember last week when I posted the picture of dead Che Guevara? Right. I posted that on my personal page, and didn't raise a hackle, didn't raise an eyebrow. I posted the same exact photo to my fan page, and they put a filter cover over it. Okay? They didn't ding me because it didn't violate community standards, but they put that filter cover over it. Now, why did they do that on the fan page and not on the personal page? Because that fan page has got the following. That fan page is within the grasp of what they are trying to do, which is shut down any voice that is even remotely conservative. And that is why they fact-checked that meme that I posted on my fan page. Again, the fact of the matter is that is absolutely and irrefutably true. China does produce more CO2 emissions than the entire fucking Western Hemisphere, consistently, year after year. It's irrefutably true, and nothing has changed in the interim. The fact check was that it was lacking important context. And they put that big check. You can go to my fan page right now and look at it. That big lacking important context fact check that they stuck underneath it. And the important context that it was supposedly lacking was per capita. Did I say anything about Chinese emissions per capita? Did I say anything about that? No, I did not, but they dropped that straw man in there, right, and didn't even bother to tell me to put my cigarette out before they broke out the straw man. And, yeah, they fact-check it, that it lacked context because per capita, China actually produces less than Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, well, thank you for that, Sparky. Good to know that per capita their emissions are so low in a country of over 2 billion people. It doesn't matter. The total amount produced still exceeds everything produced in the entire Western Hemisphere. It does not change the argument as presented. It does not change the context of the argument. It does not change the objection that I have in the first place about Western powers being subjected to all sorts of restrictions while China runs roughshod and calls itself a developing nation. This is the left. Half of them don't know. Better than half of them don't know. 3/4 of them just don't know. But the ones that do know, they're in favor of it. They will push for this because, again, at the end of the day, they are not about a fair and equitable society. They are not about prosperity for all and a clean environment. They are about the destruction of the West. Period. Full stop. No discussion. That's it. Don't engage any further than that because there's no need. There's literally no need to engage. You guys are out for the destruction of Western civilization. Period. Full stop. Well, no, man. No, we're done talking. Go away. Leave my table. Leave my family. Leave my life. You're an idiot. Simple as that. So, as we continue, next bullet point. Yeah, I did post that. That was on the fact checker thing. I want to play this for you. You guys know that I am not uninformed. You guys know that I am far from naive. You guys know that I do not deify anyone, including the people that I am deeply enamored of, my two man crushes, Vladimir Putin and Elon Musk. I do not deify those two. Musk has a lot of principles with which I find myself in objection. Vladimir Putin is a killer. That's not said in any kind of disparaging way. It's just a fact. The man will have you fucking killed. This is not the way things are generally done in the West, at least not above board and out front like that. And we can have that discussion another time. But I neither deify nor demonize any of these people. And I am not foolish enough to believe, and I'm not so callous that I do not realize that there is plenty in Tulsi Gabbard's wheelhouse with which I disagree. With regard to statements that she's made on the cash bail system and criminal justice reform, with regard to statements that she's made on gun control. What I will say, and what I did say, and I've been posting from my memories feature on Facebook to my personal page from as far back as 2020, is that she was the only grown-up in the whole fucking field. And there are two things that she did that I will always respect her for. One of those happened this week, and I'm going to play you a little soundbite, and I want you to listen close. I'll adjust the volume as we progress.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war.
Holy shit. That she was bold enough to make all of those statements. And of course, she was predictably excoriated in the U.S. press. It was political grandstanding. It was a stunt. It was more and further evidence of her being a Russian puppet because she was doing this to the Democrats right before the midterms, which meant that she must be secretly working for Trump, which meant that she must, by extension, be secretly working for this fella. I don't know how their thought process works anymore. What it basically comes down to is anybody that we disagree with is a Russian puppet. Now, again, like I went over with in the opener, guys, I am not being hyperbolic about this. And before we go into it, I'm going to play the other thing for which I will always respect her. This was in the middle of the Democratic debates in the run-up to the 2020 election. And I said then, and I continue to maintain, that until she left the Democratic Party this week, she was literally the only grown-up on that stage. She was literally the only living, breathing adult who was in contention for the presidency from the Democratic Party. And what else happened this week, boys and girls? the cadaver-in-chief and his cackling whore decided they were going to issue pardons to 6,500 nonviolent pot offenders, blah, 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 under federal law. Now, we can have the discussion about the fact that nonviolent simple possession under federal law doesn't happen, but we can have that discussion another time. As an act of political grandstanding, the cadaver-in-chief and his cackling whore pardoned 6,500 people who were charged in federal courts with simple possession. 6,500. Okay. Keep in mind, this is the same cadaver whose 1994 crime bill put literally millions of people in jail for minor nonviolent drug offenses. It was his law that did that. Keep in mind that his cackling whore, as Attorney General and Chief Prosecutor for the state of California, pushed for harsher sentences, kept people in longer, and sometimes past their sentences to use them as free labor to fight fires for the state. And that in at least one case, withheld evidence that would have exonerated a man on death row until the courts literally and forcibly compelled her to release it. And now they expect, and they're getting it from the Dems, tragically enough, that because they pardoned 6,500 people that were all just supposed to and sit up clapping like harp seals waiting for fucking fish. Well, you know what? Before we even got around to the pardons, back during the 2020 Democratic presidential debates, Tulsi wasn't having it, and we're gonna revisit that right now.
She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
True, by the way. That cackling whore, when she was asked, after putting 1,500 people in for nonviolent drug offenses, when she was asked if she'd ever smoked weed, she her little witch cackle, that's her fucking trademark. That actually happened. We continue.
She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris.
Boy, and you saw, man, immediately they're like, shut her down, shut her down, shut her down. In 30 seconds, what Tulsi Gabbard just did was destroy Kamala Harris's attempt at the presidency. Destroyed it in 30 seconds. As a result of that, because nobody knew these things about Kamala Harris, and the mainstream media certainly wasn't going to talk about it. But Tulsi did. Got out there and ripped her to fucking shreds right there on national television. And as a result, Kamala Harris could not pull 1% of the vote from her own party. 1%. Couldn't pull 1%. Biden nominating her to the VP position because she ticked all the boxes, and again, this wasn't Biden, it was the regime, it was his handlers. She ticked all the boxes. Woman of color, this and that. That's the only reason she is where she is. She certainly didn't earn it, and she certainly wasn't wanted by the Democratic electorate. So they gambled. They gambled on a cadaver and a cackling whore who could not pull 1% of her own party's vote in her own party's primary. Just to show you the level of disconnect that we're dealing with here, she couldn't pull 1% of her own party's vote, and when they asked her why, she blamed Republican racism. Knock, knock, who's there? Cackling whore, let me bring this to your attention. These were Democratic voters in a Democratic primary. At some point, blaming Republican racism no longer applies. Now, I realize that critical thought isn't your strong suit, that if we're going to play to your strengths, it's chugging cock. I get that. But even that is only going to carry you so far in the political realm. It'll get you past the Willie Brown threshold. And apparently, as long as you tick the boxes, it'll get you all the way to a fucking vice presidential position. But no one takes you seriously. No one takes you seriously. Not even the faithful. The faithful will profess, because that's what they do. They will put party over principle and they will profess. But they do not take you seriously. You are an intellectually bankrupt, cackling whore, and even your own voters know it. And Tulsi pointed it out. Tulsi this week left the Democratic Party. Now, lest you think that I'm making too much of this, she was an icon. She was absolutely an icon. And yes, I am aware of the tangential ties that she has to the World Economic Forum and their youth foundation, whatever it is. I'm aware of these things. So I'm not throwing a wholesale endorsement behind Tulsi, because I've got more homework to do on this young lady. But right now, if she's going to take a principled stand, if it winds up being, in fact, a principled stand, and I have no reason at this point to believe that it is not, then I'll take it. One of the things that you have consistently heard me take issue with regard to our political team, for lack of a better word, is this insistence on ideological puritanism. That you either have to be 100% in or you're 100% out. Leave that to them. Let the left eat itself on that ideological puritanism. We are not in a position in this fight where we have the fucking room for it. Now, there may be issues that come up that are hard lines in the sand for some people. Maybe you can maintain your ideological puritanism if someone is remotely pro-choice, that they're off the table for you. I get that. I do. Because guns and gun rights are my issue. Which is why I cannot get behind Tulsi right now. Can't do it. Because she hasn't shown me enough to say that she wouldn't be willing to trade those aside. In fact, quite the opposite. She's given a lot of indications that she is not an advocate. That she is not an advocate for gun rights. And yep. Yeah, right. Yeah, how she handled Hillary too. Absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to get into that, actually. I'm glad that you brought that up. She hasn't shown me enough on guns. It seems like she's trying to make a stand right now. I see that she did some trigger time out at the range recently with some of those, those evil black assault weapons, and some handgun stuff. Maybe she's turned a corner. Maybe she's trying to make people believe she's turned a corner. Again, I'm not giving it an endorsement. I'm just acknowledging the importance of what happened. Sometimes you got to take sometimes you got to take the W, man. Sometimes you got to take the W, even if it comes from a corner that you really didn't want and you're not passionate about. Take the fucking win. This is what happened after she clowned Kamala in the Democratic debates. This is Queen Harpy. We're all familiar with Queen Harpy. I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic Party and are grooming her to be the third party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians, and that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not, because she's also a Russian asset. This is what Queen Harpy had to say about Tulsi after she trashed Kamala, because it threw the game plan off. Kamala was the hard pick. In spite of being a useless cackling whore, she was the hard pick because she ticked all the boxes. And she was supposed to have at least the illusion that the Democratic electorate was behind her. And because she got clowned like that, and because she had to drop out of the primary so fucking early because she couldn't pull 1% of the vote, that threw a serious wrench into the Democratic Orthodoxy's game plan. And if you did that, well, you must be working for this guy. No other alternative. They even pulled Elon Musk into that one, but we're going to get back in a little bit. And again, as I said, NBC and MSNBC, Russia's propaganda machine discovers 2020 Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard. They just outright, with no evidence to back it up, they just come out and say that. Well, she's a Russian puppet. Tell me the press is free and objective. Tell me the press isn't totally controlled. Tell me the press doesn't do propaganda work on behalf of the deep state. Fuck yourself. Fuck yourself. You're either naive or a liar, and either way, I'm not breaking bread with you anymore. Let me tell you, this is okay. So when I Googled, and this is today, this isn't back when any of this stuff happened. This is today. After her leaving the Democratic Party this week, I went to Google, and my search term was Tulsi Russian asset. 3 simple words. Tulsi Russian asset. The first results that it pulled down, are you ready for this? Tulsi Gabbard's biggest political donor in 2021 is a Putin disciple. That's from Forbes. From Politico, Gabbard sues Hillary Clinton over Russian asset smear. That takes it back to 2020. What is Tulsi Gabbard actually doing on Russia? CNN Politics. Newsweek, not from 2020, but from March of this year. Tulsi Gabbard labeled a Russian asset for pushing the assertions of U.S.-funded labs in Ukraine, which it has since come out were there. Daily Beast, accused Russian agent gave to one politician, Tulsi Gabbard, and on and on and on. Tulsi Gabbard linked to Tucker Carlson speaking on behalf of Vladimir Putin. Tulsi Gabbard may not be a Russian asset, but she sure talks like one. That's the LA Times from back in 2019. So this is how the story gets shaken. Now, aside from calling her a Russian asset based on that little bit of silliness, back in 2017, they were here it is. Hawaiian Congresswoman claims she went on a fact-finding mission in support of peace for Syrian people, but characterized U.S.-backed rebels as terrorists. This is when she went over to meet with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Again, my guys are a little more aware than the average grazer of the geopolitics and the history of that region. You will know that Syria has been a Russian ally since the Soviet era. That Russia has only 2 military bases in the entire world that are outside the boundaries of what were former Soviet republics. Okay? One is in Cuba, the other is in Syria. Okay? After the so-called chemical weapons attack, Tulsi went over there because Tulsi is a lot like Ron Paul in one sense. I am not Stop, because I can already hear you. Stop. I am not putting Tulsi on the same level as Ron Paul. Stop, okay? Let me finish my fucking sentence, because I can already hear you out there thumping over furniture and shit. I'm not putting her on the same level as Ron Paul. I'm saying that ideologically she is similar to Ron Paul in wanting us out of intervention in foreign conflicts where we have no fucking business and no interest. And Syria is one of those places. In the run-up to the 2016 election, the one thing that terrified me more than anything else about Queen Harpy was her talk about a no-fly zone in Syria. Because here's the thing. ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra don't have an air force. So what planes are we going to be shooting down? Oh, wait. that was going to be Russian fighters. It was going to lead us directly into World War III. And in the meantime, the Trump haters were screaming that Trump's going to lead us into World War III. Trump's going to lead us into World War III, ignoring the fucking no-fly zone in Syria. I don't understand how these people get through a day and not put a fork in a light socket. I mean, if you're really this fucking clueless, how do you get through the day without, I gotta put a fork in a light socket? I don't get it. I don't get where these people come from. In any case, she visited with Bashar al-Assad, and she described the U.S.-backed rebels over there as, and I believe that I'm quoting here, yes, she characterized the U.S.-backed rebels as terrorists. Well, as it turns out, they fucking were. The Obama administration, who was VP then? Oh yeah, the cadaver who's in the Oval Office right now, who's still not running shit. The Obama administration was arming Syrian moderates that had ties to Al-Qaeda, that had ties to ISIS, that had ties to al-Nusra. The people that we were arming against Bashar al-Assad were terrorists. Tulsi quite correctly fucking said so and urged us hard not to get involved over there. So when she says she went on a fact-finding mission, that is a factual statement. She wanted the facts, not the propaganda that we were being handed by the United States State Department. In support of peace for the Syrian people, I would submit to you that that was also a factual statement. Why? Because while Bashar al-Assad may not be a savory fucking human being, the one thing that you can say about Bashar al-Assad is that he is a secular dictator. And when you have a secular dictator in an Islamic country where the jihad Johnnies are looking to blow shit up, that sets them back on their heels. You may remember a little country called Iraq and a fellow by the name of Saddam Hussein, who was a terrible human being, who was a butcher, a killer, a murderer, who would disappear your entire family at 3 o'clock in the morning if you opposed him. And you want to know how much terrorist activity was coming out of Iraq at that time? Fucking goose egg. Nobody fucked with Saddam because he'd kill you. The jihad Johnnies could not get fucking traction over there. Now you can talk about the Ba'ath Party and the subtle differences between the Sunni and the Shia and, who backed what. But as far as it being a hotbed of terror activity, the way you see in the majority of the fucking Middle East right now, didn't happen. Not under Saddam. That shit didn't really cut loose until after we fucking executed him. Funny how that works. Same thing going on in Libya. Queen Harpy, as Secretary of State. Airstrikes in fucking Libya. Tulsi opposed those as well. Airstrikes in Libya to get rid of Gaddafi. We got Gaddafi out of there. Remember Queen Harpy? We came, we saw, he died. Yeah, it's really funny, man. Murder is just fucking hysterical. You fucking demon. Gaddafi wasn't a good guy either. But he had the jihad Johnny set back on their fucking heels. And what happened to Libya after they got rid of him? Take a look at Libya now. I'll let you do your own homework. Don't believe me. Don't take my word for it. Go look for yourself. What happened to Iraq after we got rid of fucking Saddam Hussein? Do your own homework. You saw what a catastrophe that fucking turned into. And we had the same exact intentions with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Same exact intentions. Only it didn't pan out. But Tulsi was right. She was right to go on a fact-finding mission to find out what was really going on. She was right to expose the malfeasance of the deep state and the military-industrial congressional complex. And she was right to characterize the people we were arming as terrorists, because they fucking were. Period, end of statement, done. This is not something that is open for debate. We can have the discussion about how deep they were involved with al-Nusra and al-Qaeda and ISIS, ISIL. We can have the discussion about how deeply they were involved, but there is no dispute that we were arming terrorists. No matter how much we called them moderates, they were not. They were fucking terrorists. So Tulsi was 100% correct. But because she made this statement with regard to a country like Syria, who has been a Russian ally since the Soviet era, clearly they couldn't let that stand. So again, further evidence that she's a Russian asset. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable how far they will go to fucking squeeze anyone who opposes their agenda into that box of Russian asset. While we're on that, Tulsi, you did the right thing, Mama. You did. And by the way, I saw you hanging out at my friend Mick Maynard's place for that dinner party. Colin Cantrell, my ring announcer, MC brother in arms. I am sick fucking jealous. Because I really would have loved to have had that conversation. But it's rants like this that are exactly why I'm probably never going to get to have that conversation with Tulsi Gabbard up front. But I think it's really cool that she did get to blaze by my friend Mick Maynard's place and, you know, go to that dinner party over there and watch the UFC. She is a fan. There's a lot to like about this woman. She's a veteran. She has served. She is a physical fitness advocate. She is all about the fucking strength training. She mirrors Ron Paul's foreign policy acumen in a lot of very important ways. There is a lot of good things to say about Tulsi Gabbard, and I will continue to say them. Having said them, she does not get a blanket pass. I am holding Tulsi in reluctant optimism right now, and I'm interested to see where it goes from here. I'm interested to see how and if she changes her stance and her tack on things. I am interested to see if there is a shift in her position on guns. Because that is the hard line in the sand for me. Just like abortion is for a lot of you, I get it. Abortion is not that issue for me. I will flat out say that. A lot of you have gotten upset with me for saying it in the past, but I won't bullshit you. I will let you know exactly where I'm at. Abortion is not that issue for me. If you have someone who is hardcore arch conservative, he is in favor of small government, he is in favor of closed borders, he is in favor of letting free markets take care of themselves, he is opposed to vaccine mandates, he is opposed to federal government control over state and local affairs, but he's pro-life, I'm going to give the motherfucker a pass. Sorry, but there it is. If you have that same exact candidate, however, who is in favor of all these things, government out of state, federal government out of state and local affairs, he's for closed borders, he's for free markets, he's for this, that, and the other thing, but he is for common sense restrictions on whole classes of firearms. We need an assault weapons ban, we need this, we need that. That will knock a motherfucker off my radar. We've all got our line. Okay, so I get it. If abortion is yours, great. If the border is yours, great. If free markets are yours, great. If regulation and restriction on cryptocurrencies is your line in the sand, hold that line, man. Hold that line. But what I'm saying is we all need to take a hard look at ourselves with regard to our lines and ideological puritanism, because we are falling into the same trap of cancel culture that is eating the left alive. They're eating their own. Because the minute the orthodoxy shifts a position, well, going back to Orwell, Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. East Asia has always been the enemy. Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. And suddenly the person who was totally within the bounds of the orthodoxy last week is now persona non grata, a non-person, airbrushed out of Stalin's photos. You follow me? We cannot, as conservatives at this position in the fight, afford that kind of ideological puritanism. It's going to clip our fucking balls, man. So if Tulsi hits in the 90th percentile, and she, in fact, even in the 85th percentile, Tulsi hits like 80 to 85% of all the bullet points, and she comes around on Second Amendment issues, I will throw my not inconsiderable ass behind her. I will do it. But I felt like the move that she made this week was important enough that I wanted to bring it up because it resonated on a whole lot of levels across a whole lot of subject matters that we've covered here, and it resonated in a whole lot of ways with a whole lot of facets of importance of worldview that I am constantly pounding. To wit, free speech. To wit, putting principle over party. To wit, standing against the establishment no matter what names and labels they decide to hang on you. Okay? So Tulsi might not be a saint. Tulsi might not be in that 100th percentile that I'm going to agree with everything. But right now, I am viewing her with cautious and somewhat reluctant optimism. I back her play on stepping away from the Democrats, and I just want to see where she goes from here. Speaking of putting party over principle, or people that put principle over party, well, let's talk about my boy Elon, since we're on that. And again, we covered that in the opener too. Starlink. What did he do? And I know there are some of you out there that are not fans of Elon Musk. There are people who have stepped to me about my idolatry and my man crush for Elon Musk and pointed out that there are a number of important things that I am overlooking. I assure you I am not overlooking these things. All right? I kid and I exaggerate and I am given to hyperbole and things like that. I do have a man crush on the fellow. I do believe he has changed the fucking world. He's not a saint, okay? A lot of people have checked me on a lot of stuff. And I take every item as it comes. Let's look specifically at Starlink for Ukraine. You guys know where I stand on Ukraine. You guys know where I stand on Zelensky. You guys know where I stand on this shameless, servile, demeaning, slavish fucking support that Americans, particularly conservative Americans who should know better, have fallen into with regard to Zelensky and Ukraine. A lot of it owing to ignorance, a lot of it owing to neocons, a lot of it owing to propaganda, but most of it owing to ignorance. I do not support Ukraine. Will not, cannot, do not support Ukraine. The civilians, I feel bad for them being caught up, but they live in the most corrupt nation on the European continent. Period, end of statement, done. Zelensky is a fucking tyrant and a scumbag. Full stop. They're defending democracy. They outlawed all opposition parties. They're our last bastion of freedom. They outlawed freedom of the press and they routinely censor information. Last bastion of democracy. We need to welcome him into NATO. They have been literally genociding ethnic Russians since at least 2014. You don't know this. It'll take you about 9 seconds worth of Google search to fact check any of the statements that I just made. But we are talking about a Zelensky who has literally, and I'm saying this, I'm not exaggerating, this is not exaggeration or hyperbole. He literally released a convicted child rapist neo-Nazi and sent him back to the front line to lead a battalion. I'm not making that up. I expect to be fact-checked on it. One of your Google search terms, by the way, should be Tornado Battalion. Tornado Battalion, very much like the Azov Battalion. You guys already know where I'm at with regard to racial and ethnic politics and ethno-states and things like that. The fact that someone is a neo-Nazi is not necessarily a deal breaker. But in this case, we are talking about a group of homicidal, genocidal, child-raping scumbags. Zelensky pardoned a convicted child rapist, leader of the Tornado Battalion, and sent him right back into the field to command troops. What do you think is going to happen in the Donbass region when they move back in? What do you suppose is going to happen there? The Azov Battalion, the Tornado Battalion. Up until Russia's invasion, the U.S. press couldn't stop talking. Well, not just the U.S. press, but the European press couldn't stop talking about the prevalence of neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine. Couldn't stop talking about it. Because the one fear talking point that they always come back to, particularly here in the United States, is that there are neo-Nazis under every bed. Well, the neo-Nazis under every bed here were apparently going to Ukraine to train with their neo-Nazis under every bed over there. And the U.S. and the international press couldn't stop talking about it, and literally turned on a dime when this guy decided to invade, and suddenly, oh no, that thing about neo-Nazis in Ukraine, totally blown out of proportion. There are no neo-Nazis in Ukraine. I mean, Zelensky's Jewish. How would he support neo-Nazis? Bro, come on. What do we keep coming back to, boys and girls? Propaganda controls the media controls us. Control the perception, you control people's reality. Back to principle over party. Elon said, yeah, I'll give you Starlink. Now, I was opposed to that move. I feel like any aid going to Zelensky right now, any aid whatsoever, civilian, military, or otherwise, is basically enabling a fucking mass murderer. Fuck Zelensky. He's a piece of shit. And if you think that Putin is a mass murderer, well, then by all means, don't give him anything either and let them settle their own fucking fight. Again, family members, dumb as a fucking rock, concerned at my support for a murderous dictator. Fuck yourself. Seriously, fuck yourself. You want a murderous dictator? I'll show you one. There you go. Because this murderous dictator, I'll tell you what this murderous dictator didn't do that this murderous dictator did. This murderous dictator turned loose a convicted child rapist and put him back out in the field commanding troops. And you're concerned about my support. Fuck you. You and your sanctimony. Go fuck yourself. I will abide a lot of things. Deliberate, willing ignorance and blindness is not among them. So Elon, sorry, just bringing it down a couple of notches. So Elon gives Starlink to Ukraine. I was totally opposed to that move. But Zelensky did the predictable Ukrainian thing. He did the predictable U-crop move, which is basically, oh, thanks for giving us that, but that wasn't enough. What? Well, yeah, thanks for giving us the free internet stuff, like out of your pocket and everything, but we need the ability to, like, censor every bit of information that goes across Starlink. What did Elon say? No. Sorry, but I'm a bit of a stickler for the First Amendment. That's almost the quote. You can fact check me on it. I'm off by a couple of words because I'm paraphrasing, but that's almost a quote. Sorry, I'm not going to give you the power to censor this shit because I'm a bit of a stickler for the First Amendment. Good on Elon. At least he's staying with his principles, all right? Again, there's that moral puritanism. I could take the hard line and be like, oh, you support Ukraine, well, fuck you. And all the great world-changing shit that you're doing, fuck you because you supported Ukraine. That sort of ideological puritanism we don't have the fucking room for. We don't. Anyway, he provided this free of charge to Zelensky. And what did Zelensky and his advisors do? Well, He did the same thing that I've been lamenting for weeks that he did with the entire United States population. He calls us cowards. Calls us cowards, saying we're not doing enough for him. Spits on our fucking faces, even as we continue to give him billions of taxpayer dollars, and Elon continues to run Starlink out of his own fucking pocket, out of the kindness of his own fucking heart. Zelensky and his advisors turn around and say, we're not doing enough, and Elon can go fuck himself. And Elon, dude, his initial response was brilliant. Oh, you want me to go fuck myself? Cool, well, I'm just taking your advice then. I guess you won't need this. Then comes the outcry. The richest man in the world, but he can't afford to give Ukraine free internet. Let me explain something to you. All of the defense contractors, the military, industrial, congressional complex, the deep state that we keep bringing to your attention, do you suppose they're doing shit for free with regard to Ukraine? The billions of dollars that we're sending over there has largely been in military aid, and it has been 100% unaccounted for. Do you think Boeing is sending shit over there for free? Do you think General Dynamics or Lockheed or the Raytheon Corporation or any of the other big defense contractors are doing their shit and giving their shit away to Ukraine for free? No. The government is paying them billions of dollars of your money to help this genocidal piece of shit. But Elon is expected to do it for free. In fact, people get indignant when he suggests that he should at least be paid for it if he is going to continue to help these people, and expected to take their abuse at the same time. How have even the most devout warhawks not gotten tired of this motherfucker yet? Even the most willfully blind. How can you sit and let this sawed-off piece of shit tell you that $60 billion, $70 billion by the time you hear this, I'm sure, that $70 billion, with all the problems we've got going on in our own country right now, that sending him $70 billion isn't enough? That we're cowards? That we're not giving him what he needs? Well, if you're so beloved by the rest of the world, Sparky, how come nobody else is ponying up? Oh, right. Because no German prime minister, no French prime minister, no British prime minister, members of parliament are compromised to you the way our president is. So we keep it up. Just keep shoveling money at this motherfucker, and he spits in our fucking face. Do you understand how insulting that is? Do you understand how fucking weak, if you're listening to this, you got a U-crop flag in your fucking Twitter profile or your bio, you got your Ghost of Kiev fucking t-shirt on, I stand with Ukraine, you fucking shill, you fucking sheep, you fucking tool. He's literally spitting in your fucking face. And you continue to chug his cock like it was your life's blood. How the fuck you get through the day without just being buried in embarrassment is fucking beyond me. But you'll keep doing it, won't you? Even as we edge up to nuclear fucking war. And you'll criticize Musk for having the audacity to say maybe this has gone too fucking far. Now, he has since reversed his position, allegedly. Whether or not he legitimately reversed his position or whether he just said that, because let me read the tweet. Let me pull this up real quick. The actual tweet is, oh, the hell with it. Even though Starlink is still losing money and other companies are getting billions of taxpayer dollars, we'll just keep funding the Ukraine government for free. Now, that was widely heralded by the United States press as him reversing his position. I'm not so sure. I'm going to wait this week, and I'm going to see exactly how that plays out, because I don't think he's really going to reverse his position. I think he's just going to throw that out. I think he threw that out as sarcasm. And I think the propaganda machine is so fucking blinded that they can't even see that he's being sarcastic and clowning them to their faces. I could be wrong. We'll know by probably Tuesday or Wednesday. But in the meantime, we build closer and closer to nuclear war. Now, the propaganda ministry also, well, working on behalf of the regime, the way that they are, they can barely control themselves. But Musk, okay, here's how it all ties together. Tulsi walks away from the Democratic Party. She must be working for Putin. Musk decides he's not going to provide Starlink for free anymore, so he must be working for Putin. I swear to God, you can look this up. People on Twitter have started calling him Moscow Musk. Not even making that up. Moscow Musk. Because he had the audacity to say, I'm not going to do this shit for Ukraine anymore and let them spit in my face. So he's a Russian asset. Tulsi's a Russian asset. And now, well, the Saudis. Why? Why are the Saudis Russian assets? That seems a little odd. Weren't they our important allies in the Middle East? That's why we've been shipping them arms in spite of their abysmal human rights record. Their actions on human rights make the Chinese Communist Party look positively humanitarian. But the Saudis this week, well, they told Biden to go fuck himself because he had asked specifically for a quid pro quo. He had asked for them to not lower production until after the midterms in an effort not to help you and I, but in an effort to save his own political ass. Let me break this down for you real fucking quick because it's simple. Back when Trump was in office, we were a net energy exporter for the first time in only 50 years. Exporter. We produced enough that we were shipping it out. And at that time, Trump made a move to refill to the brim, and then some, America's Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Fill it to the brim. At the time, it would have cost us $32 a barrel. Schumer and Pelosi refused. Said it was a political stunt and a bailout for the oil companies. Biden's cadaver ass comes into office, and again, it's not Joe Biden, it's his handlers. I want to be abundantly clear on that. Biden doesn't know what day it is, but the regime, when gas prices started going up as a result of him cutting U.S. production, stop with the corporate greed, stop with the market forces, stop with it. He cut U.S. production, gas prices started going up. This is not subject for debate. You're too dumb. Sit down. Go back to the kids' table. He cut U.S. production. Gas prices started going up. So what did he do to offset the gas prices? He tapped into our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Took it to its lowest level since the 1970s and is still tapping into it in efforts to offset the gas prices, which are coming back up again. Begged the Saudis. And when I say begged, I mean tongue under the nutsack, juggling the balls and swallowing the gravy, begged the fucking Saudis not to cut production until the midterms, trying to save his own fucking political ass. And the Saudis said no. And what is the propaganda move on the Saudis now? Come on, you already know where this is headed. You've already seen the theme. Saudis side with Russia is your Google search term, and the first results it's going to pull up are oil, the U.S., or Russia. Whose side is Saudi Arabia really on? Putin and the Prince. Fears in the West as Russia and Saudi Arabia agree. It's from The Guardian. Which side are they on? Our Saudi friends cannot have it both ways. That's from Fortune. Ostracized by the West, Russia finds a partner in Saudi Arabia. That's from the New York Times. Do you see where this is going, boys and girls? We are in the trouble that we are in, not because of anything that Russia or Vladimir Putin has done. We are in the trouble that we are in because we allowed a questionable election to roll forward and put a fucking addled cadaver in the Oval Office who is, again, he's not a demon. He's a tool controlled by demons. He's an animated, he's a fucking Disney animatronic doll. He's a Muppet. He's Weekend at Bernie's, Oval Office edition. But now the Saudis, guess what? Now the Saudis, what are they? They're Russian assets. Everybody is a goddamn Russian asset. Do you understand how this works? And do you understand how this feeds into what I talked about at the very beginning of the program with regard to the people that you have around you? Elon Musk is now Moscow Musk, in bed with the Soviets because he said, I'm not giving shit to Ukraine for free. Tulsi Gabbard has been a Russian asset since at least her fact-finding mission to see Bashar al-Assad in Syria in 2017. Russia, Russia, Russia. I am part of a Russian sleeper cell, according to the definition of right-wing extremism, because of friendships that I hold that I will not back away from under any circumstances, because of friendships that I proudly hold with people that I have trained with. If that makes me a Russian asset, Zapabadu, motherfucker. Because unlike the shills on the left, and unlike the lambs and the grazers, I don't back away from my principles as a matter of fucking political convenience. I will never turn my back. I will never turn my back on the Russians that I hold as my brothers, and I don't give a fuck how that leaves my neighbors or my family, quote unquote, feeling about me. I hope that there are more Americans that have that sort of courage, because where it's headed, boys and girls, if you think that differing with the regime is going to help you at all, when they start slinging Russian asset around as a derogatory, when they start painting you with that broad fucking brush, if you think that's going to save your ass, it will not. Why is it that people always want to make that fucking Faustian bargain? They always want to placate. They always want to negotiate with the alligator in the hopes that it will eat them last. I got a better idea. Don't break bread with fucking gators. Gators is probably wrong. We can go with another reptilian analogy. Snakes. Don't break bread with fucking snakes. Do you understand that this sort of propaganda is the way, it's the final check and balance for the military-industrial congressional complex? It's the final check and balance for the deep state against people who do exercise a modicum of critical thought. Do you understand that? Can you get your head around that fucking concept? Is it possible for you to fathom that here you were, quite correctly, saying that the press could not be trusted behind all the COVID shit? Oh, they lie about Trump, they lie about COVID. You're right. You're right. They lied about all of that. Every fucking pus-dripping lie that spews from their maw should be suspect. But what happened? The minute they found your line, oh, we got to get behind Ukraine. They're fucking friends of democracy. You're an idiot. Inform yourself, because you have made yourself vulnerable to these same fucking snakes. And now we have lost a substantial part of the demographic that would have been side by side with us fighting against the nature of this fucking regime and their tyrannical overreaches and their executive overreaches and their judicial overreaches and the fact that they have weaponized the Department of Justice against their political enemies and the creeping tyranny that goes on day by day by day. We could use a few more sets of hands in this fucking fight, but no. They told you a neat story about a ghost pilot. You put on a fucking t-shirt and you shut right the fuck up, didn't you? They told you a story about an unprovoked invasion and you shut right the fuck up, didn't you? They tell you literally, God damn it, I can't even make this up. I have to show this again. They tell you literally in the New York Post that Russia is giving soldiers Viagra to make them more effective rapists in fucking Ukraine. And you shut right up, didn't you? You fucking tool. I hope that you find your spine in your balls, man. I really do. But if you don't, we're going to make it without you. And I got some news for you, Sparky. Yeah, you, with that U-crop flag in your fucking bio, defending democracy in Europe against the new Hitler, fucking Vladimir Putin. Yeah, I got news for you, Sparky. The same regime that hated you throughout the COVID crisis still hates you. The same regime that just declared you enemies of the state and right-wing extremists, people who are dangerous terror threats that need to be incarcerated or killed, they still hate you. The same people that sent law enforcement to pull you out of church while they let Antifa maggots burn down your fucking cities, they still hate you. The thing that you need to get your head around, my friend, is that the enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. For the three of you, and I say three because I'm being optimistic, for the three of you out there who stand with Ukraine as a matter of principle, I feel sorry for your lack of historical knowledge and your lack of context. But hey, vaya con Dios, man. For the rest of you who are along for the ride that could not find Ukraine on an unmarked globe but are still putting the flags in your profile, you are my enemy. For the people who have had the opportunity to do the 9-second Google search it would take to find out the prevalence of neo-Nazis committing horrible atrocities against civilians in Donbass from 2014 forward, but have chosen not to do so because it's easier to put that flag in your profile, you are my enemy. And when the day comes, I'll see you across the barricade. Because what you have shown to me is that even your pretense at being anti-establishment, your pretense at fucking resistance is just as pathetic as the people who are legit members of the machine that are still calling themselves the resistance. You are just as weak, just as useless, just as thoughtless as the whole fucking lot of them. And when the day comes and they tell you that you should turn me in or do something about me yourself because I'm a Russian asset, I wonder if your conscience is going to get the better of you, or if your truly sheepish nature is going to come to the forefront and you're going to step right up and send my ass to the gulag. Either way, it's inconsequential to me. I am who I am, and I make no apologies for that. And when the day comes, I'll see you across the barricade, motherfucker. I'm not going to get blackpilled behind this. I'm not. But you're all showing me who the fuck you are when it counts. Through the whole fucking COVID crisis, you showed me who the fuck you were. Through this whole Ukraine propaganda, you've shown me exactly who the fuck you were. I am thankful for every goddamn crisis that we have faced over the last couple of years as a people, as a race, as a bloodline, as a nation. I am thankful for every one of those crises because it has shown you all for exactly who the fuck you are. And I will no longer hold any illusions about it. I believe that the truth will out. I believe that we've hit a tipping point. I believe that even the people who initially rushed into the fray, and you could be forgiven for that. It doesn't mean I'm thrilled about it, but you could be forgiven for that. If you rushed in on the strength of the propaganda, because I understand the power that propaganda holds. If you rushed into the fray and got behind this Ukraine thing and now you're having second thoughts about it, and there's more than a few of you out there that have reached out to me and go, hey man, where am I getting this wrong? I appreciate y'all. Because it shows that you are a thinking person first. Thinking people I can work with. Ideologically driven tools, I've got nothing for you. I believe that we are in the midst of a pole shift. I believe that we are seeing it. I believe that in the election of Meloni in Italy, even though she supports aid to the Ukraine, on every other box, she's ticking right, and I'm okay with it. I'm here for it. In Hungary, same. Bolsonaro in Brazil, same. All over the former Soviet bloc, people who know what authoritarianism looks like are rejecting it out of hand. It'll come around with us. I firmly believe that in my heart of hearts. I'm not getting depressed. I'm not getting blackpilled. I love where we're at. I can tell you I love where I'm at. I'm excited to be alive at a time of history when so much is going on. To have lived long enough to have seen other phases of history and the build up and the run up to this. All those pieces of the puzzle falling into place. I am thrilled to have experienced it all, and I'm thrilled to be alive on the planet right now today to see where it goes from here. I feel like you should be too. Could it get ugly? Oh yeah. Will it get ugly? Most likely. But would you rather coast through life with no trauma and no trials to shape who you are, to test your morality, to test your strength, to test who you have become? Would you rather live in a time like that? I wouldn't. I can't speak for any of you. I just hope against all hope, that if the worst comes to pass, that all of you out there who have taken the time to let me vent, that all of you people who have taken the time to hear me out, that all of you people who have taken the time to reach out and to ask when you're admitting that you don't know, you ask. You guys I appreciate more than all of the others. Because what it says to me when you reach out to me and things like that is that what it says to me is, you know what, Bart? I thought I knew, but now I'm realizing I don't fucking know. That is how I have built the base of knowledge that I have. That is how I have built the skill sets that I have acquired over my life. Was repeatedly, when it came up, instead of thumping my chest and letting my ego get the best of me, which I did, I'm very guilty of in my fucking younger years, I said, you know what? I don't fucking know. I don't know. And the only way I'm going to find out is by trusting two things. One, the fact that I don't fucking know. And two, that there are people out there that do. And seeking them out. As we go forward through this thing, Seek those people out, man. Seek them out. They're out there. Not just me. Fuck me, man. I'm a fat, toothless cripple. I'm a crane operator with some opinions. I appreciate you guys dropping in. Don't get me wrong. But seek out those people, man. Find an ethnic Russian. I bet you know one. If you live here in the Northwest, you damn sure know one. At least. Find an ethnic Russian and talk to them. Hey, man, what am I getting wrong about this? Realize that what they tell you is going to be colored by their own experience and is not going to be 100% accurate. Understand that as well. We all have our agendas. We all have our biases, and we all are vulnerable. Whether we want to or not, we will always project that. What was it Robert Anton Wilson said? I don't believe anything. I only know. There's a wisdom to that. Your gut won't lie to you. Effective propaganda ministries know how to make that gut tell you things. But by its nature, your gut won't lie to you. Your hackles go up when some scumbag comes around you. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why in the work of one of my mentors, Coach Tony Blauer, there's a reason why, without exception, when he talks to survivors of violent encounters, without exception, they all say the same thing. Right before it commenced, what? I had this feeling, man. I just had this bad feeling in my gut right before it happened. Those instincts are there for a reason. Listen to them. You ever get that gnawing in your gut when I'm talking to you? Check me. Please. Another one of my mentors, my brother, Sonny, and the first things he ever said, one of the first times I trained with him, is if anybody tells you that their way is the only way, walk away. And I've lived by that. I do not exempt myself or anyone else. Listen to that gut. But don't be afraid to admit when you're out of your depth. Don't be afraid to admit, hey man, on this one particular topic, I don't know shit. But I'm willing to find out. Because I promise you, there are people out there that if you demonstrate that humility, will be willing to fucking show you. Hell, even on my crane tip, man. Even on my crane tip. Ryan will tell you. Ryan will be the first to tell you. I was smart enough to get out there and go, you know what? I don't know shit. And going in humble like that, knowing what I didn't know, and being open to somebody, made somebody like Ryan willing to open up his base of knowledge to me. That works across the board, people. That works across the board. Don't be afraid to say, man, I don't know. And then seek out someone who does. You will make yourself stronger for it. You will make yourself better informed for it. And when that day comes, and it's coming, you will be more of an asset to those people who do think, to those people who do learn, to those people who do keep their heart, their spine, and their balls. And you will be more of an asset to help take us over that threshold and stand there with us when we come in for the big fucking win. And make no mistake, we are going to win this thing. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys being here. I love you all. It's fantastic, man. God damn it, I would have. I'm sorry, I just saw it. Fuck. I was too busy singing your praises to get off on some rant about fucking Zionism, motherfucker. Anyway. Could you let me just pay you a compliment, dick? Fucking Ryan, man. I appreciate you guys, man. I really do. You guys are fantastic. I appreciate you being here Sunday after Sunday, man. I had a blast last night. one of the other things that I do, some of you know this about me, I am an MC and a ring announcer for fight shows, and I had a nice one up here in the Northwest, and that was a pleasure to be a part of. Rick Little and the Sick Jitsu crew from here, my hometown, Spokane, Washington. You may recognize some of those names, Mike Chiesa, and, a certain young lady named Juliana that you may have heard of. So anyway, that was a pleasure. It's ultimately you have the life that you create or the life that you fucking settle for. And I'm at a point in my life where I ain't about settling no more, man. I'm not about fucking settling anymore. I'm getting out there and I'm trying to shape it. Sometimes I fall short. Sometimes sometimes I don't quite have the wherewithal to carry over the way that I would like to carry over, but I'm out here and I'm in it and I'm still in the fight. I'm old, crippled, what is it, broken, what is broken but unbowed, maybe. Not to puff my own pecker or anything like that, but you guys make it easier for me to stay in the fight. As I get older, every week I get a little bit older, like we say, man. But you guys make it a lot more palatable for me to stay in the fight. You make me feel like a lot less of that lone voice in the wilderness. And when I see that I'm reaching people, I know that I'm not just doing this, for my own good, that it actually has an impact, and that makes it worth it for me. Absolutely, and without equivocation. I fucking love you guys. I'm going to pass around that digital collection plate, guys. I'm on Facebook Pay. I'm on Venmo. I'm on Cash App. I'm on PayPal. I'm on all that good shit. You guys, anything that I threw out, changed your worldview, expanded your horizons, you want to throw me a little coin, I'd love to take it. But I also get that we are living in a Joe Biden economy, and as such, not everybody's going to have that money to spend, and I get that too. So here's what you can do for me on that front. If you can't kick me down some coin, what you can do is, I know you guys have got Facebook pages, you got Instagram feeds, you got Twitter accounts. Spread the gospel, man. Let them know. All my sinner sisters, my Reverend Rangers, my prophets of doom out there, post it to your own social media platforms, man. Your Facebook feed, your Twitter feed, your Instagram, something. Just be like, hey, this toothless fucking old cripple, man, he gets on every Sunday and rants and raves for a couple of hours. He's a like mind. He's a kindred spirit. He's a raging asshole. He'll make you think. He'll amuse, enlighten, and offend in no particular order. Check him out. That does wonders for me, man. Spreads the word. Bumps me up in that ever-important algorithm that Roman's always talking about. But in any case, at the very fucking least, man, here's what you can do for me. And it's not even about doing for me. It's about doing for yourselves. But it serves a greater purpose in what we're trying to build here, people. You know the directives, man. The prime directives. Directive number 1. They will try to bury you with the noise. There's always that signal-to-noise ratio. They will try to bury you with the noise. Don't get distracted by that noise, man. Fuck the Kardashians. Fuck the distractions. Fuck this. Fuck that. Stay focused on what's important. Be the signal that breaks through that noise. They will try to bury you in the darkness. They will try to make you believe that there's nothing but darkness. They aim to demoralize, to dehumanize, because that's how they take you out of the fight. They will smother you with that fucking darkness. You've got to be that light. Sometimes that light ain't sunshine and unicorn farts. Sometimes being that light is a fucking flame. An all-consuming flame. So burn through the darkness if you have to, but be that light that breaks through the darkness, even if you got to burn through it. But above and beyond anything else, the prime directive, the iron rule, is to be that strength. Boom! In a world full of weakness. Because without that strength, I'm talking here, here, and here. Without that strength, none of the other stuff matters. Without the strength, you won't have the strength to be that noise, that signal that breaks through the noise. You won't have the strength to be that light that burns through the darkness. So strength is first and foremost. That is the iron rule. I love you guys, man. Appreciate you being here. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Thanks to all of you for being here. I will see you next Sunday. Be here with bells on, folks. Love you. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of each other, man. Once again, man, you guys are my heart. Peace.